Gina Habaika and Nicole Koza there with CNY Services Milestones, which is drug prevention. I'm getting a hum from somewhere. Drug prevention. They're working with the county and working with the jail and Sheriff Rob Mashel. But I thought it would be interesting just to get you guys to talk a little bit about the warning signs, if any, right? I mean, for parents, for a spouse, for a sibling, a brother or sister, warning signs.
I think a couple of the signs that, people see and don't want to actually look at what it really is. Some could be a change in your sleep habits, a lack of hygiene, frequently saying that they're sick, flu-like symptoms, sinus infections, that kind of stuff. Obviously, weight loss, change in their exercise habits, loss of relationships, fighting with significant others, overspending, changing your work habits, not showing up for work or coming into work late. Those kind of things are, easy signs to see, and then hard signs to actually recognize that there could be a drug problem.
Right, because it could be just something going on emotionally, right?
Right.
I mean, that's part of it. So the other thing that, I find that these things were always... You could, we had somebody in studio last week talking about driving down the road and you're wearing you're wearing certain attire and you got a marijuana logo or something like that. Well, the cop's going to look at you and say, well, there you go. I mean, you look like the signs are all there. Chances are we're going to find something. But what you find with these drugs is there aren't any of those signs. It could be an athlete. It could be... and it's not just kids either. We're talking about adults too.
Professional people. Yeah.
Professional people. The signs we're used to aren't there.
Right, and don't forget the underserved that aren't being looked at are the older adults. The elderly.
Yeah.
They're getting prescriptions from their doctor, and the doctors don't think that.
Are you seeing elderly people running into this problem?
Oh yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a 72-year-old man who is a heroin addict.
Wow. And what happens to the heroin addict? So you run into the position where the drug takes you over, and do we see them now out on the street? If someone doesn't help, does it go to that length?
Usually.
Yeah.
It gets to that point when you're spiraling downwards. At first, they work very hard not to get to that point.
Right.
But if you are trying to support, let's say, $1,000 a day habit, you're going to lose your home. You're going to lose your belongings.
Right.
You're going to start to do things that you normally wouldn't have done if you're not. That's the disease of addiction.
Hardest thing, though, too, for families is at what point you're there, you help, you protect, you do whatever you can, and at some point do families walk away and say, fine, we're closing you out?
It's not so much about closing them out. It's about creating a boundary and still trying to be there.
Yeah.
We do a family support group on Thursday nights at 6 o'clock. And what we try to teach is what works best for your family. The face of treatment has changed, and the way in dealing with it has changed. It's no longer that tough love.
Right.
We say that phrase fairly easily because it's what we're used to hearing. That's what we were told to do by the media or other people before us. But it's changed because addiction is now looked as a disease. It's not a choice.
Right. So it used to be, well, listen, I know how to handle that. There's always a guy in the room, usually, or maybe it's a woman. I can handle that. You got to be tough, and that's not working.
No. I'm not saying that it wouldn't work. Sometimes everyone's family dynamics are different. We can't say what works or what doesn't work. It's what works best as a family unit. And in this family support group, we try to focus on how would you handle a family member that has a disease? You're not going to cast them out.
Right.
You will create boundaries, but the key is to not lose yourself into the spiral of addiction, is to be a grounding force for your loved one.
And I do have to say that they're really good liars. I mean, I don't want to use it that way.
Say manipulators.
Manipulators. It's sometimes they're so convincing, and they're so good at deceiving you because that's survival, right?
It's desperation.
Yeah.
And desperate people do desperate things.
Because you think about, well, there's no. I asked her, I asked him, and they told me, and I believe them. But it's easy to be fooled. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And it's not just survival. It's from the people that we've dealt with. They don't want to break their family's heart. They don't want to disappoint their loved ones.
Yeah.
They don't want to admit that they have a problem that they can't handle.
Keira, I'm going to tell you that we're gonna miss Rachel because of this segment. Please, I don't want her to hang on the line any longer than she has to. We do have a call, and do you mind chatting with somebody here?
Sure.
The topic is opioids and this heroin, which just seems to be I mean, heroin's bad, and then we hear about what's being mixed into this current strain of heroin, and it's even that much worse, right?
Oh yeah, the fentanyl. You know, people, when we are doing drug testing, aren't even coming up positive for heroin anymore. Some of our folks are getting tested, and it's just straight fentanyl. That actually scares the individual.
Yeah.
We've had many people that, you know, are very shocked at the point that, you know, they actually ask for additional help because they know that the fentanyl is the killer out there.
Mm-hmm. 315-736-0186. So a minute ago, we spoke with our producer, Keira, who said her brother went through an addiction, and the drug that you're using, that you guys are touting, is
fentanyl. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, that's the bad one.
Vivitrol. That's the good one.
Vivitrol.
And Pat, Keira's brother, actually, I believe, used that. And Pat, good morning. Thanks for coming on the radio.
Hey, good morning. How are you guys?
Good. So talk about your story. What happened to you?
Okay, well, I think there was a slight breakdown in communication. I am in recovery from heroin addiction, and I live in South Florida. I work in the treatment industry. I have almost 3.5 years clean, completely clean, no alcohol, no marijuana, nothing. And I did not end up using any Vivitrol or anything like that. I think to my benefit, almost nothing like that was available or offered to me at the time when I decided to seek help.
Yeah.
For what was the last time, hopefully.
How did you how did you break the habit?
Well, I went to a substance abuse treatment center down in South Florida, and it was covered by my insurance, thankfully. You know, they never had to set a broken arm for me or anything like that, so I'm kind of glad they paid out for my treatment. And they, you know, not only was I separated for like about 60 days, like forcibly separated 1,000 miles away from anyone I knew.
Yeah.
But they introduced me to 12-step programs, and that, I think, was really what was the key for me, was getting involved in that. And now it's funny that this is the topic, because yesterday I actually sat through a presentation by the company that offers Vivitrol at the treatment center that I work at.
Okay.
And it's really interesting stuff. It is kind of cool. It binds to what are the mu, that's like the Greek letter, mu receptors in your brain.
Yeah.
And prevents the release of dopamine from, like, when you take substance, like an opiate substance, that substance binds to these mu receptors and releases dopamine. And so what naloxone, which is the key ingredient in Vivitrol, what it does is it binds to these receptors and boots out anything else and blocks any opiate from utilizing that receptor. And alcohol and opiates both use the same receptors in your brain to trigger that dopamine release.
And it doesn't seem to have the same side effects as some of the other things. Because I know people that had to go to Syracuse like once a week for the rest of their lives, and they were, what was that? Methadone.
Or Suboxone.
And they were stuck on that. That was almost as bad as the original drug. So,
right, that is as bad or worse. And so what's different about methadone or even Suboxone versus naloxone, which is what's in Vivitrol, is that methadone is a full agonist, I believe, is what it's called. And so that means that when it binds to that receptor, it binds to the same receptor, but it does release dopamine, so you do feel high. You do have that endorphin rush and that euphoria from a methadone pill, or and you have a slightly less effect from Suboxone or naltrexone, which is the ingredient in Suboxone. That does the same thing. It blocks the mu receptor, but it does slightly release dopamine, to my understanding. And what's interesting about naloxone, which is what's in Vivitrol, is that it completely blocks the receptor and it does not release any dopamine.
Can I ask you just
a miracle drug? There are some, like things that you need to be considered about it. I don't know if we have time for me to go into it.
I do want to ask you, though, about, because we have a group here, obviously, doing the same type of thing that you're doing today, which is an awesome story, by the way. But I want to ask you just quickly, Pat, how did you, you come from a good family. How did this happen? How did you become addicted?
That's something I've always kind of wondered, and the best answer I have is that there was always something kind of like, some sort of feeling of like not belonging. It wasn't due to my upbringing. I had a nice we weren't the Brady Bunch, but I had a nice upbringing. I felt loved. It was not due to my upbringing that I ended up seeking that relief. But I think as I experimented with drugs, I ended up triggering something that I was predisposed for. Yeah. Almost in a way that like sugar intake would trigger something if you were predisposed for diabetes. If you never had any sugar, you'd probably never end up diabetic. Right. But if you do intake that sugar in a large amount, you might be predisposed for it. And I think the science is really iffy and new on what exactly happens. But, I treated the way I felt with substances.
And I got to say that you hear this. Some people can try stuff and then they'll never try it again. Others try it. They can't get off it. It's Pat, listen, I want to tell you how much we appreciate you taking the time this morning to speak with us, and maybe we can do this again and get you back on.
I'd love to be called and be able to spread some knowledge that I've accumulated and help some people.
All right, you've been through it, and congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you so much.
All right. Pat, and that is our producer's brother, Keira. Thank you for that. Okay, so what he's talking about, what are your thoughts? Now, here is a success story right there.
Yeah, that definitely is a success story, and it's very refreshing to hear that there's someone who, is actually giving back and working in the field, and he knows everything that what we would say. He just said he's right on about everything.
This Vivitrol is, the beauty of this is there is no high. Right. It actually blocks that high. Right. So you don't become addicted. You don't become emotionally addicted. And you can train yourself and one day, hopefully, go off the medicine.
I think with Vivitrol, the nice part about it, when you said you're not emotionally addicted, I think it helps with the transition if you're coming off another form of medically assisted treatment, that you realize that it's actually you that is doing this. You don't need something to keep you there. There's people that might say, I want to get my life on track. I still have a lot of triggers out there that I'm working with. I still want to do a lot of cognitive behavior therapy. Yeah. So I'm going to stay with the Vivitrol shot just so that I don't have any cravings, because a lot of times use to that level now becomes a way of coping. Mm-hmm. And so when you're teaching individuals different ways to cope, because they do have to relearn things, because it does affect, their use affects the brain. Yeah. And Vivitrol allows that healing to happen and for them to feel confident in their own life choices.
It's big. Again, advice for people out there that might be fearing it, might be dealing with it.
Well, I have to say, we do have another avenue that in case somebody really does want to get help and doesn't know where to turn or doesn't want to go to a treatment facility, we did just start with the Utica Police Department, the Angel Program. And you can walk in. You can, be high, you could be using, you could have drugs on you, and you can go and ask them for help. I mean, the police are there to protect.
There was a time that you'd be arrested for that.
Exactly. And I think that it's a great thing that they wanted to partner and help our community like this, because they really are there to protect and serve.
It is important to differentiate between the people that are using and the people that are pushing. Oftentimes, the people who are pushing don't use.
That's true.
That is true, yes.
But they do enjoy the money they make off it. Mm-hmm. But they're destroying lives. So I think the way we react is...
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that we don't have people that come into our program that are dealers that don't use or might want to, use a pill here and there just to become positive on a drug screen, to be the predators, to try to get, more clientele inside. It happens all the time and it happens everywhere. Wow. Yeah, it definitely does. Inside,
you can notice it, though. I mean, if they slip through, you notice fairly quickly. Yeah. Just because of the way that we test and the way that you just know when you work in this field long enough.
Yeah. Mineski always asks the question, why are these drug dealers, these manufacturers of this heroin, why do they put chemicals in that are killing the people that's basically their
clients?
It's their clients. It's their
I
line
don't know
of
if they're trying
income.
to kill their clients. They're trying to offer the ultimate high.
The ultimate high.
The quickest high or
Yeah.
the longest lasting high. You know, they're selling it as if we would sell, as any advertising would sell
Right.
a product. It's the best.
Wait till you try this.
You're going to wait till you have this
Yeah.
and not be concerned about what side effects are there.
Because at the end of the day, I'm assuming it's like anything else. Any of these, if you take a medicine, day 1, it works really well. Day 2, not as well. Day 3, you're taking 2 because 1 doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So the same type of thing.
Same type of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. And once they put that fentanyl in, it was just that extra kick
Yeah.
that made everybody say that they wanted this.
Okay, so if people have questions, phone number, website, any of that
Yeah, if people have questions, they can call Milestones at 315-507-5800, or they can email Gina or I. It's ghabaika@centralnewyorkservices.org or nsiriano at centralnewyorkservices.org.
Okay, Gina and Nicole, thank you guys.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.